Okay, we've got a lot to talk about with UFOs today, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Yeah, to start with, James Fox says he's still in contact with one or more of the pilots that transported the bodies of the Varginha beings. He's talked about this before, about being in contact with them and about them possibly coming out as UFO whistleblowers. In fact, when I first heard about new UFO whistleblowers coming forward, I thought maybe these were James Fox's contacts of the people that transported those bodies. I think that would be amazing testimony from a very well substantiated case. Well, he says it is still possible for them to come forward.
Government officers, someone inside the government commented something about moments of contact with you to give you any feedback about that?
Yes.
And
yes, they said it happened. I'm in touch with right now 2 American witnesses that were involved in the flight, and I'll leave it at that. USAF, the United States Air Force plane that flew into Campinas on the 20th of January and then back to the United States. If anyone has a photograph of the plane on the tarmac or any information at all, please contact Marco Leal and let us know.
Okay, there you go. So he's still in contact with them, still trying to get more information about them. Of course, if he's asking for people to submit photos and stuff, it doesn't sound like they're on the verge of coming forward. But hey, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Meanwhile, Stephen Greer says he is in Washington, D.C., ready to brief Trump or his people about UFOs.
You see, I'm here in Washington right now because I have to go to some meetings with the incoming administration figures. And there's a higher responsibility to get the truth out there in a way that isn't harmful to the future human consciousness.
I love that. I'm in here in Washington to brief the incoming administration. Figures. They really had to twist his arm to get him out there, right? I love it. I love it. Stephen Greer in his monumental ego. But there you go. Stephen Greer is doing that. And, kudos to him for potentially briefing the incoming administration on that kind of stuff. I don't know if they're going to take his calls, but he has briefed presidents in the past. So it's definitely not outside of the, possibility for him to brief Trump or his people about UFOs and what's going on right now. I hope he does. I give Stephen Greer a lot of flack. And he deserves a lot of flack. But he also has done a lot of good for the UFO community, bringing forth whistleblowers like Michael Herrera, helping in the Jake Barber case to some extent, and also popularizing modalities of contact, mainly CE5. And I think that is very important to teach people they can have a personal relationship with the phenomenon. They don't need to wait for government disclosure in a way, because we can have our own relationship with the phenomenon. And I think that's fantastic that he was able to popularize that idea. So what is Trump doing with UFO disclosure? He said he was going to get to the bottom of the mystery drones and release a report on the mystery drones. Well, here he is in the Oval Office talking about that.
Is it anything these drones? Is it anything that people need to be worried about?
No, I think it's terrible. I would like to find out what it is and tell the people.
And can you commit to some kind of...
In fact, I'd like to do that. Could we find out what that was, Susie? Okay? Yeah, why don't we find out immediately? I can't imagine it's an enemy, or there would have been, people would have gotten blown up all over. Maybe they were testing things. I don't know why they wouldn't have said what it was. They had a lot of them flying over Bedminster, which is interesting, right?
And with the events today and yesterday, was everything moved inside just for cold weather, or was there some...
Okay, so there you go. Susie is going to get to the bottom of it. I don't know who Susie is, but let's hope she's on this. So yeah, there you go. He's still interested in getting to the bottom of it, at least when asked about it. I don't think that Trump is a big UFO person. He has said that he's not a big UFO person, but he's also said encouraging things about UFO transparency and that he is going to declassify files along with the JFK stuff and other stuff. So fingers crossed, we'll see where that goes. But I did want to circle back to Stephen Greer because a lot of people are giving him flack about his comments about people with psi abilities being left-handed or bi or gay, that sort of thing. And, unfortunately, that seems to be, you definitely don't have to be bi or gay or anything to have psi abilities. Absolutely 100% not. But when I was in Reiki class, we learned about, it was very annoying to me, and I made my feelings very clear. But people that are more right-brained, more in touch with the intuitive, quote-unquote, feminine part of their brain, tend to be better at accessing the spiritual and psi abilities and making contact, etc. It was very annoying to me, and I am not happy about that at all. That does seem to be a thing. Also, with Kundalini energy, it was very annoying and very sexist. That's right, I said it, very sexist. That women don't have to abstain in order to build up Kundalini energy, but men are encouraged to abstain sexually in order to build up Kundalini energy. But the good news is I did have a Kundalini awakening a couple of years ago, and hadn't been abstaining for that long. So don't feel like you need to abstain for years on end in order to build up enough Kundalini energy to have a Kundalini awakening. That is a thing as far as right-handed and left-handed people. And right-brained, the left side of the brain is more associated with logic, language, and analysis. But the idea that one side of the brain is dominant over the other is a myth. So left brain, more analytic, right brain, more intuitive or feminine. And I guess the idea is that bi or gay males would be more in touch with their feminine side of the brain. I mean, I don't know what the science is on that, but I guess that's the idea. As far as left-handed people, left-handed people are more right brain dominant. That's the rationale for that for anybody interested in that. Again, I haven't seen a lot of science done on either of those things, but that's what Greer was talking about. So take it or leave it. Oh, and getting back to the new administration for a second, Tim Burchett says, I was just informed by a chair lady that I will be on the DOGE committee. I appreciate the chair lady very much. Who is chair lady? Is that's Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. There you go. So Tim is joining DOGE, which I think is exciting because as far as like UFO disclosure goes, I actually think there's some hope there. As far as, if it's a government body or, whatever it is, trying to unearth government corruption, there's nothing more corrupt than the UFO control group that has been siphoning off money, according to David Grush, from Congress for many years into, congressionally approved programs. They will siphon this money away for their own programs. Absolutely corrupt. And that is absolutely the sort of thing I would hope that DOGE would be interested in uncovering. And Tim Burchett, big UFO transparency, proponent, actually being on that committee gives me some hope that it could go in that direction. But, we'll see. Meanwhile, Jake Barber says, I am pleased to announce that News Nation has agreed to release my full 2-hour and 30-minute interview. This will be released within days. I look forward to everyone having an opportunity to hear me speak fully, naturally, and at length on all the topics covered in the primetime piece and more. The full interviews of Don Paul, Fred Baker, and Dr. Blitch will also be released. There is a lot to hear in these full interviews. Lastly, I look forward to responding to as many good faith questions and comments as I can once these full interviews have been shared. That's awesome because, like I said in my original piece on this, I felt like his information would be much better suited to like a Joe Rogan, free flowing, 3 hour style format, as opposed to the much briefer, edited version we got with Newsmax. No fault to Newsmax. That was just the format. But I do think Jake's information could be much better served with that longer format. So I'm really looking forward to that. Having said that, I do hope it goes on Joe Rogan and he goes on all the rounds and, answers all the questions that are out there. Also, Stephen Greer, before Jake came out, was alluding to more documentation and more evidence that was going to come out along with Jake. So I'm still hoping that will come out at some point. But we'll see. Speaking of Jake and his experiences, particularly about his experience with that feminine being, that telepathic or spiritual connection that he was making with the feminine being. It was when he was transporting what he called the eight-gong UFO. So could that eight-gong UFO have looked something like this? Because it was a saucer-shaped but faceted object of some sort. So this is a depiction of the man-made UFO and man-operated UFO that Michael Herrera saw in Indonesia. And as you can see, it's kind of got these facets on it. So could Jake's UFO have looked something like that? Could it be a man-made object? I think that'd be really interesting. It'd be also really interesting if that were the case to figure out why he was receiving this spiritual communication through it, if indeed that's what was going on. Meanwhile, Chris Sharp has got some stuff to say. In November 2023, we reported on JSOC's alleged involvement in legacy UAP retrieval programs. Of note, we paid attention to the USAF's 24 Special Tactics Squadron. One source said that the Air Force Special Operations Command's 24th Special Tactical Squadron, based at Pope Field Army Air Base in North Carolina, has also been involved in securing areas for UFO crash retrievals. And this is really interesting because it's getting into John Stewart's information about the Lockheed Martin JSOC firefight, where there was actually a firefight over a downed man-made UFO that was Lockheed Martin's. Well, JSOC didn't know that. They were trying to retrieve it, and there were actually a couple of fatalities on JSOC's side because of that firefight. Chris Sharp goes on, the fact that members of JSOC and the USAF 24th Special Tactics Squadron are now coming out to vouch for UAP retrievals is historic. The dam is breaking. Note, involvement of 24th Special Tactics Squadron in UAP retrievals goes way back from my understanding. At one time, their name changed to Brand X. Interesting. To summarize, Chris says, this is the tip of the iceberg. This is the unit allegedly involved in legacy UAP retrieval missions dating back decades. These missions are happening around the globe. If veterans are ready to talk, the dam is breaking. The only elements missing relate to CIA and IC. As reported, retrieval missions work using Title 10 and 50 authorities. Assuming the Jake Barber story covers foreign retrievals, then the 24th Special Tactics Squadron would potentially be working with the CIA Special Operations Group located within the Special Operations Center. This is an important thing to think about. And is that where the Office of Global Access is? Something like that? Very interesting information. We seem to have multiple retrieval outfits operating from different spheres. So it's interesting to try to put the pieces together on this. But there you go. More pieces of the puzzle that Chris is trying to assemble for us about UFO crash retrievals. Oh, and I just wanted to quickly touch on, a lot of people still think that Jake Barber's information is really woo, and that's what's distancing them from Jake Barber's information. And I just really wanted to touch on that briefly because there are people that, most consider credible people in the public know that have openly talked about the woo stuff, and they didn't get, smeared too much because of it. People still consider them credible. So, people like Lou Elizondo, for example, has talked about being a remote viewer and being able to influence and interact with people remotely. He's also talked about having orbs in his house, for example. David Grush talked about the other dimensional aspect of the UFO phenomenon. And the list goes on of people in the public know and in the public sphere that are widely respected, generally speaking, that have had interactions or knowledge of, what we might think of as woo topics. Jay Stratton, haunted by a werewolf. Eric Davis had crazy encounters at Skinwalker Ranch. George Knapp, James Lukatsky, and Colm Kelleher in their book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon said there were so many skinwalkers that they were actually able to track their migration patterns. Migration patterns of skinwalkers, guys. The woo is real. It's all over this topic. It's just how it is, guys. It's hard to wrap your head around. My head's not wrapped around it. I don't pretend otherwise, but it's definitely there. And I hate for people to dismiss Jake Barber's information because of that. Speaking of crazy, but very likely true information, or at least very credible information, Chris Bledsoe, who, has been at high levels at NASA before, befriended by, of course, Tim Taylor, the dragon himself. And there's Chris right there at this board meeting, I guess. Tim says, astronaut crew quarters, private conference room, ONC building, KSC, Florida. This is where the real board meetings happen. So I guess it's not the official board meetings, but it's where the real board meetings happen. Well, Chris is saying that astronauts are being harassed by beings and they are seeing angelic presences.
That's why I was there, consulting with them about what they're now calling a plasmoid, which is an angelic being, little glowing beings that come out of the orb.
So how do they see them? How do they appear to them?
They would appear outside the space shuttle. Look in the windows at them. Whoa. Stand up over the shuttle bay or the space station, glowing. Sometimes there's a report of a half a dozen of them 125 feet tall with wings.
Yeah, so the woo and UFOs, they go together. But don't be freaked out, because here's a guy playing a song to a bear. Let me know what you think about it all in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. Hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. Love to see you guys there. If you want to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, consider grabbing a coffee mug or a t-shirt in the merch store below, or by becoming a channel member. Channel members are rock stars. Really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out. Don't try this at home, but cool.